Hey, everybody, this is Sean Moran with the Red Barn Financial Podcast. I'm a financial advisor here in Middle Tennessee, where I help my clients locally as well as nationally, virtually. So today I have the honor of interviewing Pepper Bethel, who really humble, awesome person. She works with the TPI group. I'll start by saying, to give you a framework of this, I asked her for a bio, and she sent me the bio on the company, not herself. So that's okay. I know her for a while, so I'll share a little bit. And we'll get into a lot of that as well. So the TPI group was founded in 1994. It's one of the largest accounting, financial advisory, and business development firms in the Washington, D.C. metro area in Tysons Corner, Northern Virginia. They offer aggressive, progressive, and holistic approaches to serving individuals, families, and business owners with tax-efficient strategies, tax advice, as well as safe and secure financial planning options. They can kind of do it all. So what I love about Pepper also is that she's a humble person. I've known her since probably about 2016. And she's also a veteran. So thank you so much for that. Veteran of the Navy, serving our country. And she's been able to take that experience and her experience with TPI and move into the government contracting space, which is awesome. So with that, Pepper, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you so much for having me. Again, I'm also a fan of yours as well. So, and you're right, it's been about since 2016. So again, I'm also, so humbled to be a part of your program today. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I kind of gave the individual kind of kickoff, but give us a little bit more about your personal and company background, kind of the things that, how long you've been there, what the company is, means to you, and just a little bit more about your background.
I appreciate it. Yes, thank you. Well, as you mentioned earlier, I am a veteran. I was in the United States Navy, so I'm very proud of that service. And then kind of transitioning into the civilian work experience was a bit of a challenge. I've always been in the financial business planning services for 23 years now. And I met Mort, my business partner, through a third party, and we've been working together since 2015, 2016. So as myself as a financial planner and him as a CPA, it just was this beautiful marriage made in heaven, so that we were able to kind of come together and say, hey, if we bring these two things together, we could be an amazing powerhouse. So that's really kind of what spoke to me about, again, what he's done in his community and how he served his community, being a Persian American. I really, that kind of spoke to me. And then again, me also wanting to kind of give back to the community as well, and wanting to make sure that what we do means something to the people that we serve. So us coming together on that level really kind of made sense. So I moved from California to Northern Virginia, and we put our heads together and we created this amazing division of the TPI group, where we do not only but taxes and accounting, business planning, and now business development in that GovCon space. It just really just kind of took off, and we're super blessed as a result.
Excellent. No, that's fantastic. And one of the things that really impressed me early on is that whenever new things come out, like there's a lot of people, especially, someone like Mort, your business partner, a lot of times when people have been in the industry for a while, they just kind of rest on what they've known before. But you guys are definitely different in that. It's like whenever new things came out, new legislation, you guys are always on top of those type of things to make sure that you're not giving your client the, hey, here's the things that I've been doing for 20 years, but hey, here's the new impactful, hard-hitting things that Congress is doing. Here's the new laws that's going to shape things for you. Tell us a little bit about, about that, why that's, kind of foundation, and how you guys kind of, do all that with everything else you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because we are definitely passionate about that. What we understand and what we've seen over the years, especially Mort in his 30 years of putting this company together, is that sometimes that communication doesn't roll down the way that we like. There's so much things going on in the infrastructure. And then how does that get rolled down to Joe Public? How does that get rolled down to Joe Public and his small business that he has? So again, that's why we're so impassioned with that, to know that, hey, you know what? We understand that that's our charge, and we take that very seriously, and we take that charge, and we want to make sure, again, as a part of us championing for the people, that's why that's so important to us, is that we want to make sure that we're not just saying that, oh, we're going to service you on paper. we truly service you. And if that means from telling you what new law just passed or how that law affects you and affects your business, again, that is super important to us. And again, I appreciate you bringing that up because that is something that we're super passionate about.
Absolutely. And you guys do a great job of that. So,
Thank you.
tell me some of the kind of the key things that your clients are asking about right now. Is like, are there any challenges or any specific, things or initiatives that you're even, maybe from what we were saying before, sharing with them and saying, hey, here's this initiative or that initiative. I know there's been a lot of development in DC, like with coronavirus, the CARES Act, Secure Act, and so on. Are there any things that you're finding that clients are saying, wow, that's really interesting to me? Are there any things that you're saying to your clients, hey, you have to be aware of this, and this is why it's so important?
Thanks for bringing that up because I think what happened was COVID really kind of threw us off for a loop, right? I think we kind of fumbled our way into it on many different levels, not knowing, how does this work? Is my business going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? What's happening with the kids, my community, my family? So I think as a result of us kind of falling, kind of backwards into that, and then everything that happened within those 3 years, then we got, they're just printing money, right? At that point, they're just like, and you get some money, and you get some money, and I think, and then they got used to that. We all got used to that, right? So as a result of that, I think what we're seeing now is we're still seeing people kind of come out of that stupor a little bit of, well, why is this different? And I think what we've had the last maybe year and a half is people trying to understand what we can do as we unravel ourselves from what happened with the pandemic, right? I think a lot of what we're seeing now is people coming in saying that, okay, I'm going to wrap my brain around, there's no more funding, there's no more money, there's no more, okay, so now what do I do? So now we go in saying, okay, now we have to, shift, pivot, and adjust, right? We did have all these funds and we did have all these things highlighting small businesses, and we certainly appreciate that. Because I think that was one thing that hadn't been highlighted ever, probably, right? I think people now know what it truly means to be a small business owner, what it truly means to help sustain a small business. So in that, I think the questions that we're getting now is that, okay, now that we've kind of shifted and pivoted, okay, what do we need to do? Who are we today, right? We knew who we had to be during the pandemic, right? But now we're having a lot of conversations about with regard to business owners. We're having a lot of conversations around, okay, this is what my business did then to survive. And then now that we're coming out of it, now what do we need to do? So those questions and those conversations are a lot deeper. Those conversations are more about planning. And we're planning throughout the year more than we've ever done before. At TPI, we've always pushed planning, thinking that planning is more important than any, financial statement, any tax return, any business plan. It's always about planning. You have to be strategic in your movements. And we certainly want to condone that. And we certainly want to do what we can to help our business owners on that same line. So in the same round of what we're doing now we're having deeper conversations. Now the conversations are, okay, can I have these 2 new employees? Now we're having conversations of what are they going to do? What are they going to do for the short term? What are they going to do for the long term? What do I need to do as far as, hey, I need to put some money aside. How much do I need to have liquid? How much do I need to have in this cash account? Do I need to have a cash account? And how much should that be? So that's what I'm saying. These conversations that we're having now with the business owners are completely different than we would have, I would say, pre-pandemic. Now we're definitely very serious about making our movements very methodical, very planned out, so that we do see some success and sustainability with regard to these small businesses.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fantastic because I say the same thing. I say when you're doing a tax return or your financial statements, you're just reporting on what already happened.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a time machine, so we can't go back and change what already happened. How do we say, okay, this is where it is right now, good or bad, right? And if it's bad, what do we do going forward to make changes? If not, we're just doing the same thing and more time is going to go by and nothing is going to change. So what are we doing to say, okay, the planning is going to be proactive, whereas the filing a tax return or putting the financial statements together, all important, right? We don't want to go to jail for not filing tax returns,
right.
But how do we make this number, our income number higher? How do we make our expenses lower? How do we get more tax deductions? How do we pay less taxes and keep more money in our pocket?
Exactly.
These are all important. These are all important things, right?
It's always about, like, when people think about what their intentions are, it's like, yeah, everyone's intentions are always fantastic. But they're just intentions. We have to now go about what are our actions, right? So we're looking at intentions versus actions. And so right now, what we want to do is we want to think about intentions, but also we want to make sure what are we actually putting in play as far as actions.
That's fantastic. What would you say, the businesses, I'm sure with throughout the pandemic, there's probably a lot of businesses that existed and don't exist. And probably now when all the money came around, there's newer ones that are out. What do you find that's, maybe one or two nuggets of here's what successful companies are doing, here's what successful clients that we have are doing, and then here's ones that aren't successful, what aren't they doing? Like, usually it's they're not listening to our advice, right? But what are the things what are the kind of the things where it's, hey, the companies that are doing X, Y, and Z are successful, and the companies that are doing A, B, and C, not so much, or they're not here anymore?
Right. I love this question. I think what I see the most is that those companies that stay rigid are the ones that we may not see anymore. Those companies that came in and said, here's my plan, I'm going to sell these widgets, and I'm going to sell these widgets no matter what happens. If a storm comes, if a heat wave comes, if the snow is falling, I'm just going to sell these widgets. And those are the businesses that I see that have kind of fallen by the wayside, because as things change in our environment, in our communities, and our legislature, we have to change with it. And that's what these businesses have to do. So for these successful businesses, what I see is that if they were able to take our advice, right? And when you have to go ahead and say, okay, now this is what I have to do. It's a pandemic. Okay, so people are no longer coming to my restaurant. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm now going to create and work with the Uber Eats, these different platforms so I can get my food out to these various people. Those are the people that we see that have staying power, right? They're not as rigid. They understand that sometimes when things crumble around you, then you have to kind of, all right, so pivot, adjust, and I'm going to go over here. So that's what we try to tell people now is that, hey, if something is different, if something crumbles, it's so important for you to not be so rigid with that initial business plan that you had. You're like, nope. In 2008, I said, I'm only going to sell widgets. And it's like, but when you have no one to sell to, what are you going to do? Maybe you want to partner with this person, and then now I'm selling this as as accompaniment to this, which is going to help you have, sustainability, longevity, revenue.
Yeah, that makes me think of the guy with the wooden wheel, right? Like, I'm selling a wooden wheel. It's like, no, now we have these rubber tires out there. Nope, I'm selling the wooden wheel. Like, nobody's out there selling wooden wheels. Those guys are all out of business. So the successful ones are the ones that say, okay, I don't really like this whole rubber tire thing we're going to, but it's what everybody seems to want. So I guess that's where I'm going to go, because if not, nobody's going to want my services. So I'm not going to be here.
That's so true. So true.
Yeah. What would you say is, I know your team has grown since we first met. I think you probably had 3 or 4, and now you have a lot more people. So maybe tell us a little bit about that. But what would you say kind of sets your team apart from others in the industry?
I think for us, what sets us apart is that we don't necessarily see ourselves closed in with regard to services. I think initially, if we think about, and we're about to celebrate our 30-year anniversary in January of 2024. So we are very proud of the legacy that we're going to keep going. But I think what happens is that we kind of go in saying, just like I said in the other story, we go in saying that I'm only going to do taxes. I'm only going to do tax returns. I'm only going to be a tax preparer. And I think what happens is that over time, your clients tell you actually what you're really going to be doing, right? Is what happens is that they may start out saying, oh, thanks, Mort. Thanks, Pepper. I did this tax return. You're like, hey, can I ask you a question about the accounting of my business? And we could have said, no, I'm good. I only do taxes. But we were like, yeah, sure, we can help with that. So I think over time, what happens is that our client base has told us what we need to add to our business, right? Our client base is say, hey, I have questions about, accounting and financial reports. And I was like, yeah, we got you. I have questions about financial planning and what do I do? Life insurance and annuities. Yeah, we got you. I have questions about, I'm trying to buy a house right now. How does that work? And you're like, okay, we got you. So as over time, as each of these things come up and our client brings them up, then it's like, that's an add-on, that's an add-on, that's an add-on. We never stayed rigid with that initial plan. Like I said before, we never said that, no, we're only going to do this. We're only going to do that. It's like, no, because what happens is if you truly want to have a sustainable business, right, you have to listen to your clients.
Correct. No, that's fantastic. I know for me, having a tax background, as 15 years in tax, when I tell people that I think it's a differentiator in my business, being a financial advisor with a tax background. But often times when I'm out networking or talking to people, they hear the tax part and they're like, "Oh, can you do my taxes?" And I'm like, I don't want to do your taxes, but yeah, I can do your taxes because it's a way to
Sure,
open the door and then create the
sure.
relationship to help with everything else. And so, over time, it's going to be, no, I don't really want to do taxes, but I have somebody to do with them. But for now,
Mm-hmm.
if it's opening the door to, more of a relationship, then I'm going to be able to help those people by helping them with what they want so that I can help them what they need.
Right? Exactly, right? And it's kind of a something that happens organically, right? Don't you find, Sean, it's like these things happen organically, but if we close ourselves off, or maybe just say, hey, you know what, I don't want to do that. I'm going to give it to Bob, or I'm going to give it to Steve. Then you find yourself when you're in a pandemic that you're like, wow, I really wish I would have diversified my business, and there now I can go shift to this or shift to that, right? Again, so again, you really have to in business, you really have to listen to what your clientele is saying, and also what the community is saying.
Absolutely. You mentioned, kind of the thing, that kind of segues nice to the next question is what have you found are some of the pain points that your clients are interested in fixing? Obviously, coming out of a pandemic, maybe it's different before, but is there kind of like an underlying everybody wants this, or maybe they don't even know they want this, but they need it. Here's, you know,
Yeah, absolutely. I think coming out of the heels of this, I think it really highlighted where people have their cash.
mm,
I think in that, right, because we took a hit, and a lot of us took a couple of hits, right? So that little stockpile of money that we thought we had, just got eaten up, very quickly. So I think what people are now examining now is like it's really important to have a line of credit, right? It's really important when stuff goes to the fan and you have to pay 10, 12, 15 employees, where are those funds going to come from? Right? When you have to then, when it takes a long time because we have, shipping issues and supply demands, and then you still have to pay for all this before you can get your money from it, then you're starting to think they're like, oh, I wish I had some money in cash right now. Right.
mhm,
So I think that's as a result for most of them, they're thinking like, wow, I do not have enough cash on hand. I'm not liquid enough. And this goes for the business owners as well as just for the individuals as well, right? Because
mhm.
again, people didn't really highlight what we all say when we say you have to also be liquid. You have to have, in case anything hits the fan, what do you have? 3 to 6 months that you can go if no money was coming in? Do you have a reserve of 3 to 6 months that you can take care of your family, that you can pay the utilities, that you can pay the cars, that you can pay the mortgages, right? That you can pay the tuitions, even though the kids aren't going to school, you still got to pay that tuition. So I think what we're finding on both sides with regard to small business owners as well as individuals, the importance of having cash.
Mm. No, that's good. And I think now that we're in an environment where there's a little bit more of an interest reward, people are saying, okay, well, I'm okay with having cash because I can get 4 or 5%
Mhm.
versus before when it was 0.01%. So
Right,
yeah,
right,
I
right,
think they're more
exactly.
likely
We
to
see that.
listen in that perspective.
Mhm.
Um, so what do you guys think, might change in the next few years? Like, where do you guys see, obviously in planning, where do you see the next opportunity for your business, or if someone's a small business owner listening to this, what are some of the things that they should be looking at to say, hey, I think things are going this way, or prepare for this or that? Is there anything that kind of jumps out to you guys, or a pattern that you've been seeing?
I do. I think there's so much more opportunity now. I don't
Mm,
know if you would probably agree with me, Sean. There's a lot more opportunity. And I don't know if because there's actually more opportunity or because now we're more cognizant to these opportunities when we weren't prior to COVID,
mm,
right? I think prior to COVID, we kind of just, was just on the level, just like, okay, this is what we do day in, day out. No one thought about any other options around them. They're just like, no, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to go to work. I do my 9 to 5. This is what I'm doing. But I think as a result of what happened during the pandemic, when there were so many new businesses, so many new people that brought up to say, well, I can sell hand sanitizer, I can sell soap, I can deliver your food from you from the restaurant. I think now we're seeing opportunities in many different areas pop up where we didn't see them before. Prior to that, no one really, there wasn't the cart thing that you can go and I'm going to get my groceries, the Instacart, right? Those things were there, but they weren't really highlighted the way that the pandemic highlighted them. So I think to me, those 3 years during the pandemic, it created so many more opportunities, and it created people to see opportunities differently, as opposed to be like, yes, I work at the gas station. This is what I do. This is all I'm going to do. As opposed to now, they're like, I work at the gas station, but I also do Uber Eats, and then I do Uber Drive, and then you see how people's minds are kind of expanded, and it kind of works in a different way. So I think that's what people are seeing now. And I think people are understanding what those opportunities mean to them, to their families, to their communities, and to the small business community as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, flexibility and being able to pivot. I think before it was I have my 9 to 5 or I have my regular job and that's it. And I think people got complacent. So now it's more of the, hey, I have to be willing to be flexible. I have to be able to pivot. I have to understand that, again, I hope and pray that that's the only pandemic we have in our lifetime, but it makes people think, well, what if my job isn't there tomorrow? Or what if, hey, we're shutting everything down. What else do I do to feed my family?
Right.
What other kind of things do I need to have my hand in, which is great.
Right. We need to have a plan B. And I think that we never really, realize that we'd have to ever enact that plan B, right? It's like, we're like, oh, I got a couple, $1,000 saved. But then you're like, well, that's it. What is that going to take? Is that going to pay another month's rent or no? Is that going to, when this job goes away, do you have a plan B that you can have a backup job? I think you bring up such a good point, is that now that we see a plan B and now we see that, we have to this has to be a real plan B or plan C.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, with that, I guess I would ask what questions have I not asked you, or what kind of areas or things do you want to touch on that it's like, hey, here's your soapbox, tell the audience, tell people what it is that you want to share about yourself, what you're doing in your business, in TPI, in the business, and, kind of if someone's sitting there saying, okay, I listened to a little bit of this here and I think I have some kind of idea. How do I know if I need you guys?
Right. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. There's a couple of things that kind of come to mind. Probably one of the biggest challenges that I see with people wanting to make that transition from being an employee to perhaps a startup or an entrepreneur, an employer, is the business setup. I probably have this meeting 5 times a week where people go in and they're super excited and they're like, okay, I need an LLC. I got to get it in. And then so they go to, whatever else places that they go to get these businesses, and they're set up incorrectly. So I see that's probably the number one thing, is that businesses, entities that you are creating are set up incorrectly. Because of course you have the passion, which is so amazing. I love that. I want to feed into that. However, you don't necessarily know the proper steps of what you do or what kind of business entity that you need and what kind of industry that you're going in. Does it make a difference? Do I have a contractor or do I have an employee? That's probably the top kind of misstep that I see among people trying to make that leap, and again, and I want to be there for them to let them know that, hey, it's okay to do these services online, but you really need to be able to talk to someone about it. So the first thing I get is that people say, I want to start an LLC. I have to tell them, an LLC is not always appropriate. Because people use the term LLC, the same way they use Coke, right? They're like, oh, I want a Coke. What kind? I want a Sprite. You know what I mean? So again, we have to kind of educate ourselves, and I want to help along with your help. I want to help educate these people that, there's a different way depending on what you're doing, how you're doing it, how much revenue you think are going to come in, whether you start a business entity or you wait a little bit, keep it kind of on your Schedule C before you start making some money. And then once you start making money, let's have a conversation with someone and say, hey, are you going to be having earned income or unearned income? Is this going to be, income from labor that you actually put work in, or is this going to be passive income? Because from then I can tell you what kind of business you need to start. And like I said, it is not always an LLC. I always say to everyone, an LLC is for passive income. You want a corporation, that's for anything that generates labor. If you had to put some labor in, and I believe all your people out there are putting in the work. So if you have labor, then that's what you want to do. So again, try to ask some questions first before you just kind of jump in and be like, I'm going to start an LLC for my, shoe cleaning business or for my gardening business. It's like, again, we certainly appreciate your passion and want to help you drive forward. But that's definitely something that we'd want to like help you through and make sure that you're making the right steps. You know, what does it mean tax efficiency? What does it mean for taxes? What does it mean? How do you pay yourself? And that's the next one. People aren't really sure how to pay themselves or how to pay the people who aid them, whether that person is a contractor, you know, maybe just does some contract work for them and they're not necessarily a W-2 employee of them. They're going to be a 1099. So what does that mean? What does that mean for their taxes? What does that mean for payroll? When should I put someone on payroll? Things of that nature. I think we want to be there for them to help educate them on those steps. Because, you know, now more than ever, there are just so many like rules and regulations, and there's so many laws, and we want to make sure that you guys are adhering to all those laws. Make sure that, you know, if this is a hobby, and then you set up this business entity and now you have to pay this amount every single year and you don't know that you have to pay it and you're like, what is this? I don't, or you have to get all these resale licenses and stuff. You know, it's definitely an education in the beginning. And again, people like you and me, we just want to help them along that journey because there's just so much that you don't know. You know, you may know everything about a mechanic shop and how to fix a car and electrical, but unfortunately, you don't know anything about, you know, creating a business, sustaining that business, what kind of taxes you need, what kind of licenses you need, what state you want to be domiciled in, things of that nature. So we certainly want to be there to help them through those, you know, so they don't have as many missteps.
Yeah, that's a lot of consultative stuff, and the things you're saying definitely resonate because I know a lot of people say like, "Oh, well, I created an LLC and I think I'm going to change it to an S corp." Well, why? You know, you know what? I don't know. I heard S corp, so some people said that could be good. Well, it could be, but you know, it depends on your situation, right? You know, and a lot of that, you know, I've had people like, "Hey, I want to hire this guy, but I don't want him as my employee. I want him to be a 1099." Well, what's he doing? He's working for me 9 to 5. Well, he's doing everything that's an employee. He's an employee.
Right.
You don't
He's not 1099. Right.
Right. You don't get a choice as to whether somebody's a contractor or an employee. It's based on what they do for you. And so it's a lot of education. I call these people accidental entrepreneurs.
Oh,
So
that's a good term. That's
yeah,
a good term.
I like it as I liken it as, you know, hey, I love basket weaving and that's my thing. And then it's like I've created this business and oh my goodness, I had no idea I have to do these books and records and know how much money I make. You know what?
Exactly.
I mean, when I had my
Expensive.
Verizon,
Yeah.
when I had my Verizon store, I talked to a lot of other Verizon store owners. I'm like, hey, how you doing? Like, how are things going? Like, where are you for the year? I don't know. They're
Right.
not looking at their numbers. They have no idea. Or, you know, some smaller businesses come to me like, hey, can you help me with, like, say, help me with my taxes? I haven't done anything in 2 years. All I have is these
Oh,
bank
wow.
statements. And it's like, yeah, I can help you get where you need to go, but you know, we want to fix this so that you're not like, how do you know? I have one guy came to me, he's a contractor, he's working on this project, and he said, I'm just about done with it, but I have no idea. It was a $50,000 deal. I don't know if I made money, I don't know if I lost money, I don't know if
Oh,
they owe
wow.
me more money, if I owe them. So we put it all together and, you know, put it all on paper and Excel and so on. And it's like, well, yeah, you made 13 grand and they owe you, you know, however much, and sat down with the client with them and walked them through the numbers and they agreed within $250. And so it's like
Wow.
that. And he's like, this was amazing because if they told me I had to write them a check for 5 grand, I would have, because I had no idea.
Wow.
So it's, you know, and he embraced that, the accidental entrepreneur title. It's like, that's exactly what I am. So, you know, that's the kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, anything in closing that we didn't touch on that, you know, you might want to add, that you want people to hear about you, the business, or, you know, directions you're going or whatever we haven't talked about so far.
Yeah, right. I would love to kind of touch on, you know, our business development division with regard to government contracting. Again, being in the DC metro area is an amazing place to be, and it's an amazing place to have a business and to be able to do not just, you know, public, you know, sector business, and also, you know, public and private, which is amazing. And we just happen to be in a really great spot for that. So again, in our 30 years, the last 5 years, we've kind of unofficially kind of brought in that GovCon. But now, you know, we're definitely kind of carved it out more. And then now what we're doing is we have a whole division set to just helping people, small businesses, again, with the education, right? Because if there's a regular education just on how to do business, then there's a whole other book of how to do business and how to market to the federal government. So again, we're so proud and we're so passionate about that as well. Also coming from a place of education to be able to, hey, you know what, we know that there are thousands of businesses that, you know, every month that get created, and with the thought of, hey, you know what, I live here too. I live in DC. I certainly want to be a part of this government contracting industry. But so again, we have that carved out, and what we do is we help them again setting up the business, making sure that the business is set up correctly, help educating them through a bunch of relationship building sessions that we have with them and say this is what we need to do and this is how it's different. Private versus public is super different, and we want to make sure that we educate you on that. So again, we have a program that we have here, and we're, again, like I said, we're super excited about it, to be able to help educate these small businesses, get their certifications, have them understand that this is a very relationship driven business. So to be able to have those relationships are huge, as opposed to maybe some other businesses. You can just go ahead and just kind of market to the public, and then they'll buy your, widgets. But for this, it's completely different. You need to be, set up in certain different databases for them to recognize you. So, again, there's a lot more layers to that. And that's something that we're really proud that we're able to offer to small business owners who want to go ahead and market their services or market their products directly to the federal government, as well as the state and local governments. So again, that's been, extremely just beneficial on both sides. It feels so good to give that back to them, because they don't have a place, right? There's no place that they can go to. In the regular business, you can go to someone and say, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? But this business is so, siloed off, and there's not a lot of people that understand how it works. And as you mentioned before, I am a veteran of the United States Navy. So there's certain things that I know and that I've been, accustomed to or aware of or brought to the attention of because of that military service. So that's something that I'm able to bring to the table when we're working with these small business owners, to say, hey, this is how we do it. It's very methodical as well, is that we need to first get educated here, get these certifications, and let me tell you why you need an 8A versus the hub zone versus SWAM versus all these other things. There's a whole nother language that we speak when it comes to GovCon. So what we're doing is we're just, in this program, we're just taking it step by step to help them understand. And again, we want them to be successful. We want them to be sustainable. We want them to have revenue.
Well, that's awesome. No, and I think it's like the biggest takeaway from our conversation today is consultative. You guys, you have the knowledge, and you're willing and able to share it with others. And it's funny because one guy that I know through networking, an attorney, his name's Seth Connell, and he always says the only thing more expensive than a professional is an amateur, right? If you're not getting your foot,
very true.
Yeah, if you're not getting your foot in the door, or if you're like, I can do this myself, and you totally mess it up, it's going to cost you more time, it's going to cost you more money, and it can cost you problems with the government, with the IRS, and so on. But also, it might be, as you're saying, I know in the government contracting space, I know enough to know that it's very competitive, and if you're not going in with the proper things, knowing all the terms that that you mentioned, you're bidding on a project and you don't even have a chance. Right. So if I work with you guys and I pay you some money to help me set myself up and be able to actually deliver and get a contract, as opposed to just trying to do it on my own and it never comes to fruition. Right. Yeah, you guys have tons of knowledge in that space. So thank you so much, Pepper, for taking the time to do this.
It's been a lot. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much, Sean.
Absolutely. And I will hit stop recording. And we're off. That was fantastic.